Epistemological truth, that's bedrock. You simply can't hold two contradictory truths simultaneously. The cognitive dissonance of doing so is overwhelming. And so if somebody's wrestling with two truths, guess which one loses out? I'll give you a hint. It's not your buyers. You've heard the expression, perception is reality. And you may have even used that expression to describe the dissonance between what you think of your industrial marketing and sales messaging and material and activity and the way buyers engage with it. I believe that referring to perception understates the challenge, and that further, if we can unpack the root of that perception, that we have a better chance to overcome it rather than just repeatedly banging our heads against that brick wall. Today, we're going to talk about beliefs. Why your buyer's beliefs are true, regardless of whether they actually are, and how to overcome that. Welcome back to the Industrial Growth Institute podcast. I'm Ed Marsh, your host. Today, I want to tackle something that's been nagging at me for years. I've worked with countless middle market industrial manufacturing companies, and I keep seeing the same pattern. Smart, successful leaders who know they need to change, but somehow can't pull the trigger, can't decide what to change, can't decide where it's worth leaning into. They're not in crisis. They're doing okay. Maybe not great, but adequately enough to avoid the kind of burning sort of a crisis that creates action. What fascinates me is that some companies navigate change beautifully while others remain paralyzed. And I think I've figured out why. It's not about change management. That actually comes later. It's about something more fundamental. The nature of truth itself. Here's what I observe. Most change management advice assumes that leadership has recently decided change is necessary. The real challenge actually comes early, recognizing that change is needed in the first place and committing to it. I mean, think about it. These are often founders or second-generation leaders who built something from nothing. They succeeded by being contrarian, by doing what everyone said wouldn't work. Their entire identity is wrapped up in being right when others were wrong and naysayers. But here's the paradox. What made them successful becomes their ceiling. The very mindset that created their success now prevents them from adapting. Why? Because they're not dealing with opinions or preferences. They're dealing with what they know to be true based on their experience, and you can't argue with truth. I've been wrestling with this for some time. Really, I would say since the politically charged issues became so polarizing, kind of several years ago. It doesn't matter what your position was, for instance, on COVID masking or the role of anthropomorphic carbon creation and climate change. The fact is that you have a truth. And anyone who disagrees is therefore missing the truth. They're not operating in good faith. They're simply deluded. So there isn't disagreement. There's not two perspectives. There's truth, and then there's the others. There's no conversation. To the extent that there's dialogue, it's talking past each other. And I believe that is often similar with buyers and sellers. So let's dig into this. So let me start by clarifying three concepts that are crucial to this discussion. I'm not a philosopher. You may find that there's lacking nuance or even fundamental misunderstanding in these definitions. But for the sake of this argument, here's what I mean. If you find value here, do your own research. Absolute truth. These are universal, unchanging facts. Mathematical truths like 2 + 2 = 4, physical laws. I mean, the fact that a company is spending more than it earns will eventually become insolvent. These exist independent of anyone's perception. Then we can talk about epistemological truth. So this is somewhat different. This is about how we know what we know. It's truth based on evidence and justification available to us. If our sales rep says they closed a deal, the customer confirms that they ordered and paid, and the customer tells us that the rep helped them find the right solution and contributed to the close, then we have epistemological truth that our rep is effective. They're going out there, they're finding deals, they're helping buyers, and they're closing deals. Then there's bias, and this is what impedes our knowledge gathering. I might prefer getting advice from trusted peers, making it implausible to me that anybody would consider searching YouTube or Reddit for solutions, even though many people do. So that would be an example of my bias. Now, here's, I think, the key insight. Most of what we call bias in business context isn't really bias at all. It's epistemological truth, and that changes everything in a couple of ways. If we call it bias, if we discuss it as bias, if we challenge our buyers that they're biased, that carries so many negative connotations that people are hesitant. On the other hand, if we acknowledge that something is truth, even if we disagree with it, even if we believe it's untrue, we're in a stronger position. So let me give you an example of, or several examples of what I mean. These are statements I hear often from manufacturing leaders. For example, the role of salespeople is to provide technical information. They have evidence. Their reps are trained on product specs. Buyers ask technical questions, and deals are won when technical problems are solved. Our industry is different is another one. Our buyers don't use the internet like other industries. Now, they have evidence. I mean, their customer base skews older. They work in traditional industries. Their current customers found them through referrals, or at least that was the way they built their business years ago. Another might be video content won't work with our buyers. Evidence, that they have that confirms this or justifies this is that their buyers are engineers who prefer data sheets. They've tried video before without success. Another could be sales is too complicated to reduce to numbers because it involves people and personalities. And they have justification for this. Every deal is unique. Relationships matter. You can't force someone to buy. But here's what's fascinating. Every single one of these statements is epistemologically true for the person saying it. They have real evidence, real justification. It's not bias. It's truth based on their experience. But I also know these statements are false because my epistemological truths are completely different. The role of salespeople is to help buyers achieve important outcomes. I have evidence of companies using consultative selling to dramatically outperform those focused on technical specifications, and of sales reps who excel at reaching decision makers, using business acumen, asking great questions, where the deal closes and we just need to confirm technical details rather than try to sell based on those. For another example, all buyers use the internet. They just use it differently. I mean, my evidence is that even 75-year-old manufacturing executives Google suppliers. They check LinkedIn profiles. They research solutions online. I could also say that video builds trust and helps to explain complex concepts better than any other medium. For evidence, YouTube is the second largest search engine. B2B buyers consume video content throughout their journey. Many go there first. Sales absolutely can be measured and improved systematically. My justification is that companies with disciplined sales processes consistently outperform those relying on personality and relationship alone. So my epistemological truths are true, fully justified, fully documented in evidence, just as my buyers are, and they're directly contradictory. So here's why this distinction matters. You can acknowledge bias and you can work around it. It hurts. People may resist. People don't like the negative connotation, as I said earlier, of being thought to be biased. They feel that somehow it connotes a lack of awareness on their part or a lack of empathy. But epistemological truth, that's bedrock. You simply can't hold two contradictory truths simultaneously. The cognitive dissonance of doing so is overwhelming. And so if somebody's wrestling with two truths, guess which one loses out? I'll give you a hint. It's not your buyers. It's yours. F. Scott Fitzgerald supposedly said the best test of first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Now, those are ideas. So let's say you're debating or you're writing position papers, and you can think about each one. You can think about the contrary evidence. You can do, either or justifications in each case as an intellectual exercise. But we're not dealing with opposed ideas here. We're dealing with opposed truths. And this is why change is so difficult for successful middle market, even kind of adequately operating and growing middle market industrials. Their culture is built on tradition, on what has worked, on a set of truths, epistemological truths. Unlike a software startup where disruption is the essence, these companies succeeded by being right about something fundamental. They built a set of practices. Those practices achieved success. It launched them to leadership in the industry. It's helped solidify their brand. It's made them an anchor in the community. That is a very strong set of justifying evidence for their epistemological truth. So when I tell a manufacturer they need to change their sales approach, I'm not challenging their opinion. I'm challenging their truth. And that's why they resist so strongly. And frankly, if you understand it in the context of their truth, that's why the resistance makes perfect sense. And this is exactly the same thing that many of the companies that I work with and those that tune into this podcast and read some of my material experience. So this creates a massive challenge in our sales efforts. We're not just competing with other vendors. We're competing, or we're challenging our prospects' epistemological truths. When every competitor claims to be the best solution, prospects' truth tells them that these claims are meaningless marketing speak. When we insist our approach is superior, their truth, built on years of experience, tells them that we don't understand their business. We can't win by being louder and more insistent. We can't overcome epistemological truth with better presentations or one-pagers or slide decks or whatever. We need a fundamentally different approach. So how do we work with epistemological truths instead of against them? I suggest 5 possible approaches. You may have your own, and you may find some of these work well, don't work well. I'm open to suggestions. Please drop comments, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn or on YouTube or wherever it may be. I'd love the conversation. So number 1, I would say, let's explore the outcomes, not the truths. Don't challenge their truths. Explore whether these truths are helping them to achieve their goals. If buyers really do know their business better than anyone outside, and that's working perfectly, you'll be hitting your growth targets, right? So where there's a gap between truth and outcomes, that creates an opening for discussion. Number 2, find contradictory evidence. Look for behavior that contradicts their stated truth. If buyers never want outside perspective, why do they hire consultants? If SEO and content marketing are key to growth, why isn't the competitor with the most web pages growing fastest? Number 3, test predictions. I recommend helping buyers test their truths predictively. If your buyers never use YouTube for business research, what percentage would you expect to mention video content when we survey them about the information resources they use for research, and then test it? And if they're right, at least this epistemological truth of theirs is accurate and correct, then 0% of buyers would say, or maybe there's a margin for error, 10% of buyers would say they don't use video. On the other hand, if 50% of buyers say they use video, now we have justification in the form of data that contradicts the data they have, so now we can have a discussion about it. The 4th option is to run pre-mortems. Instead of debating the merit of their truth, compare future outcomes under different scenarios. So let's assume we've got 2 approaches. Your current approach, and let's assume it continues perfectly. Where does that put you in 3 years versus your growth goals? Let's talk about an alternative approach, and let's anticipate in advance the things that could go wrong with it, what might go well. And in both cases, then compare how sound our truths are based on a realistic prediction of what's likely to happen over time. Number 5, follow logical conclusions. Help them trace their truth to a logical endpoint. If there's truly no way, for instance, to predictably create new opportunities in the industry, if your growth depends entirely on receiving referrals from existing relationships, then that means that you can't scale to meet your growth targets, and it's an entirely passive revenue growth plan where marketing and sales are completely irrelevant. The best you can do is build more relationships today that you hope will yield inbound opportunities in the next 10 or 15 years. And clearly that is incompatible with most business expectations and goals these days. So that epistemological truth is likely faulty. But we can't challenge it by telling them that. We have to take them to the point where they can reach that conclusion themselves. So this isn't just about sales tactics. It's about how we approach all business challenges. Companies that simply repeat industry's conventional wisdom find their message deflected by prospects who don't even internalize it because their epistemological truths prevent them from doing so. And it also feeds into the epistemological truth that what companies say in marketing and sales is likely, slanted, exaggerated, and not in the buyer's best interest. But companies that help buyers examine and evolve their truths create enormous value. They don't just differentiate themselves from competitors, they help their customers see new possibilities. So here's my challenge to you. Stop trying to convince your buyers they're wrong. They're not. According to their epistemological truths, they're absolutely right, and you are wrong. So instead, start helping them discover whether their truths are serving their goals. Be creative and confident enough in your own epistemological truths that you can guide them to a new recognition rather than just forcing confrontation, hammering them with stuff that sounds like everyone else. That's how real change can happen, not by destroying what people know to be true, but by helping them build new truths that serve them better. And that is the essence of consultative sales and of marketing that's designed to help buyers understand their problems and their outcomes rather than just talk about the stuff that you make and the stuff that you do. So thanks for listening. I'm Ed Marsh. I'm the host of the Industrial Growth Institute podcast, changing the format from weekly episodes to bi-weekly episodes and mixing up the formats a little bit, occasionally having some of these individual conversations, having a sales conversation periodically with Derek Bear, like in the last episode where it's a much more free-flowing thing, and working in guests, as I know I've heard from many of you. You've enjoyed the earlier episodes. Thanks for listening. Please drop a comment. Be sure to like and share, and please subscribe. And if this, first of all, forgive philosophical errors on my part. If you're a philosopher and I've somehow misinterpreted absolute epistemological truth, please take it the way I intended it in explaining this concept that I think is critical to sales. And by all means, drop some comments. Let's have a lively debate online about whether you think there's value in this, whether it's accurate, what approaches you have that made you successful in dealing with it. Thanks for listening and watching.